What if I told you that in just 3 days in Bahrain a car marked as too extreme could become the biggest technical threat on the grid? Because that is exactly what is at stake with the arrival of Adrian Newey to the second week of testing. After a first phase full of doubts, narrow performance windows and rumors of structural fragility, Aston Martin is not bringing a simple aerodynamic improvement. It is bringing a package designed to change the entire narrative of the AMR26. And the most disturbing thing for the rest of the teams is that when Newey corrects, he usually does not adjust. He transforms. The second week of testing in the Bahrain desert does not begin as just another day of testing. It begins with tension. After a first week in which the AMR26 left ambiguous sensations, the atmosphere around Aston Martin became uncomfortable. The car had shown flashes of technical complexity, but also an overly narrow window of performance, especially under hard braking and mid-speed landings, where the balance seemed to shift abruptly. It was not a problem of lack of ideas, but of execution under real load. And that is where the key moment comes in. The direct arrival of Adrian Newey with a package that does not seek to disguise figures, but rather to unlock the true behavior of the concept. The first thing we must understand is that this package was not born as a desperate reaction, but as part of a plan already anticipated from the first kilometers in Barcelona and in the initial days in Sakhir. The AMR26 was conceived as an extreme car from its base architecture, with a radical focus on the ground and how the car's structure behaves dynamically under downforce. In the first week, that concept showed both its potential and its limits. When the car entered the ideal window, it was competitive. When he deviated even slightly from it, he became unpredictable. That, in modern Formula One, is unacceptable for a project that aspires to consolidate in 2026. The big package of the second week directly attacks the heart of the problem, the flat bottom. New contours are introduced at the edge of the floor, millimeter adjustments in the geometry of the underfloor and slight modifications in the upper body that seek to stabilize the flow in the transition from braking to support. They are not changes visible to the naked eye, but they are structurally relevant. The intention is clear. Improve aerodynamic sealing without compromising mechanical stability, expand the operating window and allow the driver to have confidence when the car enters maximum lateral load. Because true performance is not in the absolute peak load, but in the ability to reproduce it lap after lap. But there is a second front that is equally delicate: the integration with the new Honda power unit and the transmission under the 2026 demands. During the first week, signs of mechanical stress emerged in the gearbox under certain torque peaks and hybrid deployment. Although the architecture cannot be redesigned in a matter of days, the team introduces local boosts and adjustments to the torque maps to smooth delivery in long runs. This implies assuming a slight loss of aggressiveness in certain modes, but gaining thermal stability and reliability. In a test, completing programs is more important than making headlines. This is where context becomes decisive. Bahrain is not a neutral circuit. It is aggressive with the tires, requires stability during long braking and punishes any imbalance in traction. If the AMR26 manages to be more progressive in these conditions, the message to the paddock will change. Because what was in doubt was not Newey's creativity, but whether the concept could be sustained under real demands. And the second week is the first serious exam. The most interesting thing is that this moment has a very Newey narrative. Radical car, worrying initial reading, increasing external pressure, and an update designed to alter perception in a matter of days. It's not just about pure performance but about technical consistency. If the car begins to behave more stable in medium-fast support and in transition, it means that the base concept is valid. And that changes absolutely everything for the development of the season. The second week in Bahrain is not simply a continuation of the test program. It is the moment in which the AMR26 must demonstrate that it is not a risky experiment, but rather an incomplete project that is beginning to find its real form. This defines whether Aston Martin is facing a silent revolution, or facing an excessive risk that will need to be reconsidered before the calendar moves forward. During the first long stints of this second week, the team's focus is not on chasing headlines with isolated fast laps, but on studying ground thermal consistency and flow stability under changing fuel conditions. Bahrain, with its long braking and violent traction zones, exposes any structural imbalance. In the first week, the AMR26 showed a kind of split personality, extremely competitive when the car was perfectly settled, but nervous when the balance varied minimally. Now, with the new bottom contours and underfloor adjustments, the goal is to smooth that transition. And here's something key begins to be noticed. The car no longer falls abruptly at the entrance of a medium-fast curve. The support phase is more progressive. It does not mean that it is the fastest on the grid in absolute terms, but it does mean that it is beginning to expand its operating window. That, in Formula One, is pure gold. Because a car that can be repeated is a car that can be developed. The second element that is analyzed with a magnifying glass is torque management and the interaction with the transmission under hybrid load. Following signs of mechanical stress in the first week, the team introduces more progressive maps in certain deployment modes. This reduces aggressive peaks that compromised rear stability when exiting corners. The effect is not spectacular in top speed, but it is in sustained traction. The car seems more rounded on long runs, less reactive to micro-corrections. And that type of improvement is exactly what defines whether a project has a future. The interesting thing is that this phase is not measured only with internal data. In the paddock, rival engineers are beginning to notice something subtle. The AMR26 no longer generates constant steering corrections in critical areas. The pilot's micro-gestures are cleaner. When a car needs less intervention, it means that the aerodynamic platform is more stable. And that is a signal that the other teams know how to read perfectly. Additionally, reliability begins to sustain full programs without significant interruptions. There are no radical changes in architecture, but there is an optimization in thermal and load management that allows racing scenarios to be simulated without any problems. In a year with new regulations, completing entire programs is almost as valuable as setting the best time of the day. This is where Act 2 gains narrative weight. The narrative begins to change. We are no longer talking about an excessively extreme car, but rather a concept that is beginning to be understood. The difference is subtle but profound. When a team manages to stabilize a radical design, the next step is to exploit its performance ceiling. And if the foundation is solid, the potential can be greater than that of more conservative concepts. The second week in Bahrain, therefore, becomes a confirmation laboratory. There are no fireworks, no grandiloquent statements, but a growing sense of technical coherence. The AMR26 no longer seems like a risky experiment, but rather a project that needed fine-tuning to unleash its real behavior. And this is where the real question begins. If this package not only corrects but unlocks hidden performance, how much room for evolution does the Newey concept still have? And then comes the moment that really defines everything. Not the isolated data, not the specific fastest lap, but the global reading that the second week of Bahrain leaves behind. Because when a radical car stops seeming unstable and begins to appear coherent, the impact is not only technical, it is strategic. The AMR26 ends this testing phase with something much more valuable than a headline: credibility. After the adjustments on the ground, the stabilization of the flow and medium-fast support, and the more progressive management of the hybrid torque, the car no longer conveys the sensation of being at the structural limit in each transition. That completely changes the projection of the project. What seemed like a tiny window in the first week is now beginning to expand. And in Formula One, when the window grows, development accelerates. This is where the figure of Adrian Newey acquires its true weight. It is not simply a matter of having corrected nervous behavior, it is about having demonstrated that the base concept was valid. If the fundamental architecture works, the team can evolve on it for months without needing to redirect resources toward a partial rebuild. That difference is critical in a year of new regulations. Changing philosophy in the middle of the season is practically dooming the championship. Validating it in February or March is opening the door to sustained growth. Furthermore, the psychological effect within the paddock is beginning to be noticed. When rival engineers observe that a car stops showing constant micro-corrections and begins to be repeatable over long runs, they know it is no coincidence. It means that the aerodynamic platform is starting to settle. And that triggers a silent alert. If the radical concept is already stable in testing, its performance ceiling may still be far from being reached. There is another key point that is consolidated in this second week. Structural reliability and thermal management allow complete programs to be completed without serious interruptions. In a 2026 environment with more aggressive hybrid demands, that is a strong message. It's not a fragile car trying to survive, it is a project that is beginning to consolidate. He still may not be the fastest on the outright stopwatch, but he does look more solid than he did just a few days ago. And that progression is what really worries rivals. The second week in Bahrain, therefore, not only validates a package of improvements, validates a philosophy. It marks the point at which the project stops being an unknown and begins to become a potential threat. Not because he has swept times, but because he has demonstrated technical coherence under pressure. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.